In the outer edges of the Corella system, 3 parsecs past where the law forgets and the stars don't shine as brightly, there was a desert moon called Corella 7. Dust storms howled like ancient ghosts, and nothing but old junkers, exiles, and the occasional bounty ship ever bothered to land there. And that's exactly why Jace Mylan stayed. He wasn't always a loner. Once, he was a decorated field engineer in the Terran Defense Corps. Then came the Black Iron Rebellion, the deaths, the mistakes, the dishonorable discharge. So now, Jace salvaged wrecks, fixed busted engines, and drank moonshine made from cactus slime. He didn't talk to people, didn't want to. Machines were simpler. They didn't cry or betray you. Then, on the 3rd cycle of Corella's twin moons, the sky broke open. Jace had just finished patching a power converter on an old trade hauler when a burning streak tore through the atmosphere. The thunder hit a few seconds later, followed by a column of smoke rising to the west. A crash. A big one. Normally he wouldn't bother. Wrecks drew scavengers. Scavengers drew trouble. But something tugged at him. Maybe it was the way the fire lit up the sky, like a dying star gasping its last breath. Maybe it was something else. He loaded his quad bike, grabbed a ration crate, a med kit, and his old pulse. Pistol, just in case. The wreck had buried itself half a mile into the ridge crater. It was like no ship he'd seen before. Sleek, almost organic looking, shaped like a predator mid-dive. Parts of the hull shimmered like glass and scales. The cockpit was twisted open like a broken ribcage. Inside it stank of fire, blood, and ozone. And that's when he heard the sound. A cough. Then a voice. Weak, soft, unfamiliar. He stepped over scorched plating and found her. The first one. She was curled against the wall, barely conscious, with blood streaming from a gash along her thigh. But her blood wasn't red. It shimmered gold. Her skin was a pale lilac, hair silver, eyes shut. "Hey," Jace said, kneeling. "You alive?" A cough was her answer. Then a second figure stirred beside her. Smaller, thinner, breathing shallow. 2 of them. Sisters, maybe. Same strange features. Same uniform. Tight armor laced with biocircuitry and cracked psionic conduits. Symbols glowed faintly on their wrists in alien script. They were badly dehydrated, starving, burned. He could have walked away, but he didn't. Jace pulled open the ration crate and offered water first. The older one opened her eyes, sharp, wary, violet like the dusk before a storm. Her fingers twitched toward a blade at her belt, but she was too weak to lift it. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, holding the bottle closer. She didn't trust him. He didn't blame her, but she took the water and shared it with the other girl, who stirred weakly and clung to her. "Names?" Jace asked, more out of habit than expectation. The older one rasped, "Zariah." The younger opened her mouth. Elira." Their voices were like wind chimes breaking under pressure. "All right, Zariah and Elira," Jace said. "You're not dying in this metal coffin, not today." It took all night to move them. He wrapped them in thermal blankets, loaded them onto the quad bike, and drove back across the dunes. Every bump in the terrain made them groan in pain. Elira passed out halfway back. By dawn, he'd rigged a pair of old stasis beds and got them stabilized. He fed them soft protein packs, applied burn gel, cleaned their wounds. They slept. And while they slept, Jace sat outside the shack and stared at the rising suns. He didn't know who they were, where they came from, why their ship looked like something from a lost civilization, or why he felt this pull. He should report them. But to whom? No one came to Corella 7. That was the point. And still, there was a strange ache in his chest, a feeling he hadn't known in years. Hope? They woke 3 days later. Zariah tried to stand immediately, fell, growled, tried again. Elira smiled at Jace, shy and grateful. She asked him his name. He told her, You saved us, she whispered. No one ever saves Nitherans. Nitherans? Jace repeated. That your species? Zariah nodded slowly. We are the last. Something in her tone chilled the room. Last? Of what? And why were they running? Jace didn't ask. Not yet. Instead, he brought them food, fixed Illyra's bracelet, repaired Zariah's neural blade hilt. They were cautious at first. Cold. Alien. But the ice began to crack. Zariah began helping with repairs around the shack. She was precise, methodical. Illyra hummed as she worked, fixing one of his old transmitters. One night, as the wind howled outside, they told him more. They were daughters of the Nitheran Imperial line, a race with psionic blood and minds that could bend light, sound, and thought, hunted for generations, sold, tested, exploited. Their ship had been attacked by the Synthdom, a cybernetic collective conquering outer systems. They escaped, barely. Their enemies wouldn't stop until they were dead or claimed. Jace stared into their eyes, saw fire, fear, strength. He didn't know it yet, but by feeding them, sheltering them, he had entered into a bond deeper than tradition. Nitherans bind through need, trust, and survival. Their laws were ancient, and to them, he had just become more than a savior. He had become theirs. Jace hadn't planned on waking up with Zariah standing over him, eyes glowing violet, a plasma blade just inches from his throat. Don't move, she said, her voice calm, but sharp like a blade just before it slices. Jace didn't move. Her expression was unreadable. Not anger, not quite suspicion either. Something deeper. A test? Illyra is missing, Zariah said. She was here when I slept. Now she's not. Jace blinked off the sleep haze. She said something about looking for flowers. Medicinal, I think. Zariah's nostrils flared. And you let her go? Out there alone? I didn't. She went before sunrise. I didn't even hear. She stepped back, lowered the blade. We must find her, now. Jace grabbed his boots, rifle, and a scanner. Within minutes, they were cutting through the dunes on the quad bike, the harsh winds stinging their faces. Zariah didn't speak, but she vibrated with barely restrained fury. Not at Jace, he realized. At herself. They found Illyra in a canyon hollow, kneeling by a glowing flower, its petals pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Her fingers glided gently over its surface. She looked up as they approached, smiling. It's called Sora El. Nitheran healers used to say it was the breath of stars. Idiot, Zariah snapped, hugging her tight. What if synth scouts tracked us here? What if... I was careful, Illyra whispered, but I couldn't stay locked in the walls. I needed to feel something alive. Zariah exhaled. Next time, wake me. I will. They turned to leave. Then the scanner on Jace's belt lit up. 2 red dots. Approaching fast. Trouble, he muttered. From over the ridge, 2 sleek hunter drones dropped into view. Black chrome, shaped like vipers, whirring with energy. Synth scouts. Jace raised his rifle. Zariah didn't wait. She darted forward, her neural blade erupting with searing plasma. She moved with terrifying grace, spinning. Under the first drone's beam, vaulting up and driving her blade into its core, it shrieked in binary and exploded midair. The second drone fired. Jace shoved Illyra down and fired 3 shots, only one connected, sparking off its side. Zariah leapt, but this time, she didn't make it. The drone's beam hit her shoulder. Spinning her midair, she crashed hard against a rock, the blade flying from her grip. Zariah! Illyra screamed. Jace moved without thinking. He drew his combat knife and sprinted. The drone turned, scanned him, and fired. He dodged, rolled, came up underneath it, and jammed the blade through its lower fuselage, right into its stabilizer port. It convulsed, then dropped, screeching, He kicked it away just as it exploded. Smoke. Fire. Silence. They made it back to the shack in silence. Zariah's shoulder was burned through to the muscle. Jace worked on her in near darkness, pouring burn gel and psionic sealant over the wound. She hissed in pain, but never screamed. Elira sat beside her, holding her hand tightly. Her eyes met Jace's, and they shimmered again, not with fear, but with something warmer. "Why did you fight it?" Elira asked softly. "You could have run." Jace shrugged. "Didn't seem like the right thing." "That's not why," Zariah rasped. "You fought like a soldier." Jace hesitated. "I was one, a long time ago." She nodded once, silently. A mutual recognition passed between them. Soldiers didn't have to explain their scars. That night, after patching the hole in the roof and checking their perimeter defenses, Jace stepped out beneath the double moons. He thought he was alone, until Elira joined him, barefoot on the sand, her silver hair glowing under the pale blue moonlight. "You've given us more than food, Jace," she said. "You gave us time, breath, hope." He chuckled. "You sure about that? I just handed you a sandwich." Elira smiled, but her expression turned serious. Among Nitherans, feeding someone when they are near death, it is sacred. It's called kashatel, a bond not easily broken. What kind of bond? She took his hand. The kind that changes fate. He felt her warmth, her pulse, and something else, like soft electricity running beneath his skin. For a moment, the war, the pain, the exile, it all vanished. There was just the sound of wind, 2 moons, and a heartbeat, not his own. Later that night, Jace was awakened by a deep vibration under the ground, not thunder engines. He scrambled up and rushed to the radar console. The screen was lighting up. 3 ships. Heavy class. No transponder codes. "They found us," he whispered. Zariah entered behind him, gripping her shoulder, still weak, but her eyes burned with fire. "No," she said. "They found me." Jace turned to her. "We can't win a full assault." "I know." "What do we do?" Zariah looked at him, her expression shifting. "We fight, not for survival, not for escape, for freedom." She reached out and touched his temple. Her fingers sparked with psionic light. Images flooded his mind. Nitheran battle rites, ancient code links, biotech armor systems, combat stances alien to any Terran training. "Let me share what I know," she whispered. Jace gasped. It was like learning a new language through instinct. The Nitheran combat memory merged with his own. He felt faster, sharper, alive, and bonded. With them, with her. By dawn, the enemy ships would land. But Jace wasn't afraid anymore, because now he didn't stand alone. He had 2 alien sisters beside him, and together, they were about to show the synthdom that even hunted relics of a lost empire and a broken human with a pulse rifle could still burn like stars. The first ship cracked the atmosphere like a whip of fire. From the ridge, Jace watched the trail of smoke curl behind the synth dropship as it descended in a spiral pattern. 2 smaller escort crafts flanked it, humming like electric wasps. Their hulls were ink black, trimmed in violet, standard for execution squads. 3 minutes, Zariah said, tightening the band around her damaged shoulder. 3 and 27 seconds, Elira corrected from the shack's broken radar terminal, eyes glowing with calculation. "That's how long we have." Jace strapped the pulse rifle to his back and turned toward the bunker he'd been building in secret for months. It wasn't much, just a reinforced tunnel with hidden landmines and a plasma cannon he'd rigged from scrap. But it was home now. It had to hold. "They're not here to negotiate," he muttered. "No," Zariah said. "They're here to erase." She pulled open a hidden crate Jace hadn't even noticed before. Inside were 2 pieces of Nitheran war armor, elegant, curved, shimmering with bioluminescent circuits. She tossed one to Elira, who caught it and slipped into it like a second skin. When they stood side by side, they looked like living myth, silver flames and crimson shadows dancing across their skin. Zariah turned to Jace. "I can link your mind to Elira's. Won't that overload me?" "Probably," Elira said, smiling softly. "But it'll let you see what we see. Fight how we fight." Jace hesitated, then nodded. "Do it." The link burned, not pain, more like intensity. Like his thoughts had suddenly opened into a cathedral of light. He saw battlefields he'd never stood on, felt grief he hadn't earned, smelled Nitheran soil, and deeper still, he felt Elira's heartbeat. He was inside her rhythm, her fear, her loyalty, and her growing love. The moment snapped back. Jace gasped, sweat pouring down his face. But he was ready now, more than human. The first synth trooper landed with a tremor, a 7-foot brute with armor grown, not built, like a beetle born of steel and AI. Its face was featureless, except for a glowing triangle in the center. "Error. Unregistered life forms detected," it boomed. "Engage. Eliminate." Jace fired first. The pulse round struck the trooper's shoulder, staggering it. Zariah leapt from the roof like a comet, blade in hand, slicing through its helmet with a scream of sparks. It collapsed, twitching, then 10 more dropped in unison. The sky became fire. What followed was chaos, an elegant, destructive dance. Zariah weaved through blasts like liquid flame, her blade slicing arcs of plasma through synth armor. Elira, from behind cover, directed pulses of energy from her gauntlet, disrupting enemy shields and cloaking Jace in shimmering light. And Jace, he moved with a speed and precision he didn't know he had. The neural bond with Elira allowed him to anticipate movements, hear thoughts, even feel when Zariah needed cover fire. He dropped 2 scouts with headshots, then a third, then overloaded a synth's power core and sent it crashing into its allies. They pushed forward, but the mothership still hovered above, waiting. Inside the cockpit, a different presence stirred. Commander Kael Vor. Not a machine, a hybrid. Synth flesh and Nitheran DNA fused together, illegal, abominable, and powerful. He had been created to hunt traitors like Zariah and Elira. "Send the erasers," he said to his AI. The ship released 3 mechanical horrors. They weren't soldiers. They were swarms, nano-drones shaped like centipedes with razored limbs and hive minds designed for evisceration. The swarm hit hard. Elira was knocked off her perch and sent tumbling. Jace tried to reach her, but he was intercepted, tackled by one of the creatures. Its jaws opened, hissing molten acid. Zariah screamed, lunging forward, but she was cut off by a dozen synth troopers swarming the hill. For the first time, they were losing. And then it happened. Elira's body began to glow, blinding white. She screamed, and the swarm froze midair. "Elira, no!" Zariah cried, but the young sister had already lifted into the sky. "I call the flame of Lithar." Elira shouted, her body consumed in burning light. She detonated a pulse of energy so massive, so raw, that it scorched the air, fried the drones, and sent the entire synth line recoiling. Even the mothership above trembled. She collapsed, unconscious. Into Jace's arms, he held her, trembling. "Why would she do that? That could have killed her." "She did it to save us," Zariah whispered, voice thick with emotion. "She did it for you." Jace laid Elira down in the bunker and covered her with his jacket. She stirred, weak but alive. He looked up to the sky. Kael Vor was descending. A tall figure stepped from a teleport pod, half organic, half machine, wearing a mantle of Nitheran bones. His voice was deep, almost seductive. "Such fire, little sister," he said to Zariah. "You were always too sentimental." Zariah stepped forward, shaking, but defiant. You're not Nitherin anymore. I evolved, and now I'll burn your impurity from this world. He raised his hand. Lightning surged, and Jace stepped between them. You want her? Jace growled. You'll have to go through me. Kael'vor tilted his head. A human? How quaint. He fired. Jace blocked it, with his bare hand, coated in Illyra's energy. The bond had changed him. He wasn't just fighting for survival, he was fighting for family. Kael'vor stepped back. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Zariah took her. Blade. Illyra, now conscious, joined hands with Jace. All three faced the abomination together. The battle was not over, but the tide had turned.
Thunder clashed as the standoff began. Jace stood flanked by the alien sisters, Zariah, war-scarred and resolute, and Illyra, still glowing faintly from her near-sacrificial energy burst. Before them loomed Commander Kael'vor, the monstrous synth hybrid, with Nitherin DNA laced through machine flesh. Around them, the wreckage of downed synth soldiers and scorched earth steamed under the broken sky. You cannot win, Kael'vor said, his voice like 1,000 discordant tones. You're one man, one traitor, and one weakling empath. Zariah raised her sword, the blade humming. He's not just a man. He's the reason we're still breathing. Jace didn't know how he was still standing. His arm still tingled, where he'd blocked Kael'vor's blast using Illyra's transferred energy. Something in him had shifted, something permanent, a deeper connection, a bond of soul. Kael'vor struck first. He launched forward, sword drawn, faster than any being Jace had ever seen. The blade moved like liquid lightning. Zariah barely blocked the first strike, and even then, she stumbled back, sparks flying from her armor. Jace fired his pulse rifle, but the shots bounced off the hybrid's reactive shield. I need a clear shot, Illyra shouted, ducking behind a smoldering transport. Kael'vor turned to Jace with a flick of his wrist and sent a telekinetic wave that hurled the human like a rag doll across the clearing. Jace landed with a grunt, blood in his mouth. Zariah screamed and lunged, but the hybrid caught her sword mid-swing, twisting her wrist until the weapon dropped. He slammed her into the ground with a crack that made Illyra cry out, "Stay down!" Kael'vor snarled, but she didn't listen. Illyra stepped into the open, wounded, shaking, but upright. You left us starving, forgotten, worthless, she said, her voice soft but strong. He didn't. Kael'vor turned slowly. He fed us when we had nothing. He believed in us when our own people wanted us erased. You call that weakness? I call it strength. Then die with your pet. The hybrid launched a plasma spear, and Jace, still bloody, still dazed, dived in front of Illyra and took the hit. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs. His body went cold. He collapsed into her arms. Jace! Illyra screamed, cradling him. His face was pale, his shirt burning at the center. His hand trembled against hers. No, no, please, don't do this, not after everything. Zariah, bleeding and staggering, crawled toward them. Illyra, the link, transfer it, all of it. Illyra's eyes widened. But if I give him my core energy, you won't die, Zariah said, her voice breaking. You'll evolve. And she did. Illyra closed her eyes, laid her forehead against Jace's, and whispered the Nitherin incantation of soul fusion. The transfer was instant. Light burst from both their bodies. The ground shook. A pulse of warmth swept over the entire valley. When Jace opened his eyes, they glowed the same silvery hue as Illyra's. He stood, his chest healed, energy coursing through his veins like wildfire. He was human no longer. He was Nitherin bound, an impossible hybrid of human courage and alien energy. Kael'vor backed away. What are you? He demanded. Jace stepped forward, hand crackling with light. Hope. He raised his hand, and this time, the pulse blast didn't bounce off Kael'vor's shield. It shattered it like glass. Zariah attacked from the left, and Elira from the right. Their strikes hit in perfect synchronization, coordinated through Jace's mind link with both sisters. The three of them moved as one. Kael'vor was powerful, but he was alone. They were a unit, and in under a minute, they overwhelmed him. Zariah slashed his leg, Elira fried his targeting systems, and Jace, he drove his glowing fist into Kael'vor's chest. The hybrid screamed, exploded in a halo of white fire. Silence followed. When it was over, the rain came. Gentle, cleansing, Jace fell, to his knees in the ashes of the battlefield, exhausted but alive. Elira joined him, quietly, resting her head against his shoulder. Zariah sat across from them, her expression soft for the first time. "You two are bound now," she said. Jace glanced at Elira. "Does that mean that you'll feel her pain, her joy, her hunger, her heartbeat, forever?" Elira looked up into his eyes, brushing soot from his cheek. "You fed our bodies, Jace. Then you fed our hearts." He smiled. "And you gave me a reason to fight." The world was watching. Unbeknownst to them, Jace's suit had been broadcasting. The entire galaxy saw it. A human risking his life for alien sisters, fighting not for power but for connection. On distant colonies, rebel synths began questioning their code. On Nithera, hidden factions lit signal fires again. And on Earth, Jace. Cade's name was no longer spoken with mockery. It was spoken with hope. Back at the shack, the three stood beneath the stars, their enemies destroyed, their bond unbreakable, their next step unknown. "I never asked," Jace said, holding Elira's hand. "What now?" Zariah smiled faintly. "Now we build a future that no one can erase." Elira leaned in, her lips brushing his ear. Together.
The weeks after Kael'vor's defeat brought a silence the galaxy hadn't known in centuries. But peace, Jace quickly learned, was just another battlefield. The trio, Jace, Zariah, and Elira, became symbols, a human bonded with Nitheran sisters, who had overthrown the hybrid warlord live on interstellar feeds. The legend spread faster than plasma fire, turning rebellion into revolution. On Nithera, the veiled matriarchy summoned them. Jace didn't want a throne. He wanted to rebuild his garden, to sleep, to make pancakes. But the galaxy had other plans. Inside the crystalline council dome on Nithera Prime, the air shimmered with tension. The Council of 13, a circle of glowing, ancient Nitheran women, sat around Jace and the sisters. "He carries our light," said Matron Selith, eyes fixed on Jace. "Yet he is human." "He is more than that now," Zariah replied, chin lifted. "He carries our bond. He carries love," Elira whispered, taking Jace's hand. Gasps murmured through the chamber. The matrons stared. No one had said that word here in a century. "You risked your lives for him," said Matron Selith. "For one man." "I would do it again," said Elira. "So would I," Zariah added, "even if it meant death." "Why?" Solith pressed. Jace stepped forward. "Because I didn't see aliens. I saw people, starving, abandoned, hurting. You left them to die. Your emotions are a weakness." "No," Jace said. "They're the only thing that makes power worth holding." Silence. Then Matron Selith leaned forward. "And what would you do, human, if we named you first emissary to Earth? Speaker for the alliance we once abandoned?" Jace blinked. "You want me to represent both our species?" "You already do," Selith said. "It wasn't a throne, but it was a chance to unite two worlds." The coronation was strange, not with crowns, but with bonding lights, thin threads of Nitheran energy that looped from Elira and Zariah to Jace, creating a radiant triangle of silver arcs. The ancient rite of tri-fusion, not just of power but of trust. The crowd chanted. Across the stars, hundreds of colonies tuned in. But Jace only saw them, his two alien sisters, his equals, his guardians, his home. Back on Earth, things weren't as celebratory. The Global Defense Authority had tried to paint Jace as a traitor. But his viral broadcast told a different story. Protests erupted. Soldiers refused to fight. A statue of Jace, Elira, and Zariah was raised outside New Geneva within a week. When Jace finally returned, landing the Nitheran skiff on Earth's soil, the world paused. Reporters, drones, silence. Then cheers. Children ran forward with food, fruits, bread, even chocolate bars. Jace laughed, tearing up. You all remembered. You fed the galaxy, someone said. We wanted to feed you back. But peace is never perfect. Remnants of the synth hybrids, the Silica Remnant, launched a final ambush during a Unity summit on Mars. Jace, Elira, and Zariah responded immediately. It wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a message that the old world of fear was dead. This time, Elira didn't hesitate to unleash her full power. The stars bent to her song, harmonic energy so pure that even the synths fell to their knees, overwhelmed by emotion they could not process. Zariah's sword carved through the corrupted skyships with grace and fire, and Jace, now fused with both their souls, channeled a new force. Empathy turned weapon. Every synth he touched remembered the pain of the people they hunted. The starvation, the desperation, the hunger, and they stopped. One by one. They stopped. The war was over. For real this time. 6 months later, Jace stood outside a new home, not a shack, but a garden ship that hovered peacefully over green fields. The ship grew food, solar healed its wounds, and floated wherever it was needed, a traveling sanctuary, just like the one he once wished for. Inside, Elira adjusted her necklace, crafted from the crystal that once powered Kael'vor's war core. Zariah trained barefoot in the grass, her laughter rare but beautiful. Jace watered alien fruit vines near the open hatch. They didn't need luxury. They had each other. One night, under a twin moon sky, Elira and Zariah sat on either side of him as he leaned back into the soft moss pillows they'd grown together. You changed the stars, Jace, Elira whispered. No, he said. We did. Zariah took his hand. You still feel human? He smiled. Mostly. Except when I feel your heartbeat in mine. Do you regret it? Elira asked. He looked between them. I gave food. You gave me everything. They leaned in, foreheads touching his. Tri-linked again. And for the first time in recorded galactic history, love, not conquest, not colonization, not fear, bound the stars. The end. In a world desperate for change, sometimes it takes one act of kindness to ignite a galaxy-wide revolution. What would you give to heal the stars? Like, comment, and share if you believe compassion can conquer empires and love can rewrite destiny.